This is Community Radio Networks. It's Friday, the 19th of July. And we have all the information that you need to take on the day today. We'll start with the world news. A widespread Microsoft outage has disrupted flights, banks, media outlets, and companies around the world this morning. Escalating disruptions continued hours after the technology company said it had gradually is now fixing the issue affecting access to Microsoft 365 apps and services. Airlines included United, American, and Delta, along with telecommunication providers, banks, and media broadcasters, disrupted as they lost access to computer systems. Numerous Windows PCs and computer systems across the world are down, affecting businesses like airlines, supermarkets, broadcasters, software providers, and many more. The issue stems from a faulty update in the Falcon sensor software from cybersecurity company CrowdStrike, and it's causing the blue screen of death for a lot of people. Companies worldwide experiencing interruptions amidst this outage of Microsoft's cloud computing suites, with flights being grounded, news outlets unable to broadcast information, and operations in brokerage houses being hindered. The outages have been reported in Australia, the United States, the UK, India, affecting institutions ranging from banks, media houses, and stock markets to government branches and airports. Separately, Microsoft said it was investigating this issue impacting various Microsoft apps and services. Major U.S. carriers issuing ground stops today, citing communication issues. And we do have a few now getting ready to start. Not immediately clear whether the call to keep flights from taking off was related to this cloud outage. But apart from America and Delta, UAL, Allegiant Air grounded flights, and also the low-cost carriers like Frontier and Sun Country. U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg said the department was monitoring this flight cancellation and delay issues. And millions of Windows users across the globe experiencing the blue screen of death. That's the BSOD error, which is causing the system to suddenly shut down or restart. And amid massive disruptions caused by this update, Microsoft has said that the underlying cause for the outage of the 365 apps and services now is being fixed. CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz, who said the company is actively working with customers impacted by a defect found in a single content update for Windows hosts. He said that he also had many Mac and Linux hosts that have not been impacted. Microsoft responded to the tech glitch and said a resolution is coming up while blaming a third party. And a CrowdStrike update led to this global outage that has affected flight and passenger service in Dubai airports, among others, and many others across the world. A global technology outage knocking banks and hospital systems offline and media outlets off air in this massive disruption that affected companies and services around the world and highlighted dependence on software from a handful of providers. Cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike said the issue believed to be behind the outage was not a security incident or a cyber attack, and that a fix is on its way. Former President Trump formally accepted the Republican nomination for president for a third time yesterday and thanked Americans for their support after he was injured and a man died in an assassination attempt at the former president's campaign rally last week. He vowed that our resolve is unbroken as he reflected on the shooting and called on Americans to unify after the attack. At the end of an energetic convention, with his ear still bandaged, his voice softer than usual, he accepted his third straight Republican presidential nomination by claiming, like many other speakers this week, that the grace of an almighty God saved him from assassination so that he in turn could save America. A big question heading into the closing night of the convention was whether he took the stage in Milwaukee would be any different than the one who took the stage in Butler, Pennsylvania 5 days earlier, or at the least whether he would sound any different, and he was definitely softer. It is also Representative Ronnie Jackson of Texas, who was Donald Trump's White House physician, examining his former patient after Saturday's assassination attempt and has remained by his side during much of the convention. He rode in his motorcade and has been with the president a lot. It is a Trump speech that capped a run of good fortune, both personal and political, unlike anything in U.S. campaign history. A Supreme Court stocked with 3 of his appointees created a new rule about presidential immunity that cast doubt on whether he would ever stand trial for trying to overturn the 2020 elections. And in Florida, another Trump appointee dismissed all of his classified document charges. His rival, the incumbent president of the United States, self-destructed so spectacularly during the first debate that the entire Democratic Party has gone into crisis mode over whether he should even continue his candidacy. Former President Trump was fired up as he addressed the Republican National Convention last night and formally accepted his party's presidential nomination. From shouting out his famous friends at the event, such as Hulk Hogan and Dana White, to hinting at the return of trade wars, he gave a lot of investors to think about. He officially accepted the nomination and spoke in detail about surviving the assassination attempt against him at last Saturday's rally in Pennsylvania. It was his first speech since the rally, and he led a moment of silence for firefighter Corey Comparator, who died in that shooting. He said his supporters had raised $6 million for the families of the victims in the deadly shooting in Pennsylvania at the final night of the Republican National Convention. In his first speech since the assassination, it was a different Trump. Thousands of mourners paid their respects at a Pennsylvania banquet hall to the family of a former fire chief who was shot and killed during the attempted assassination of former President Trump. He sent a note of condolence hailing him as a hero, a copy of which was displayed at the visitation. He did not attend the memorial, which was the second of 2 public events memorializing and celebrating Comparator's life, but hundreds of people gathered at a vigil also at an auto racing track, and a private funeral is scheduled for today. Unlike Eric and Don Jr. That spoke earlier this week, the most prominent Trump women, daughter Ivanka and wife Melania, were absent for most of the week. Ivanka and her husband Jared Kushner may have served in the highest echelons of the Trump White House. Melania might have lived there as First Lady, but all of them have been remarkably reluctant to re-engage this time around. But Melania Trump and Ivanka Trump were at the convention yesterday, making a rare appearance in support of former President Trump's third bid for president. The former First Lady and the former president's eldest daughter have largely steered clear of the campaign trail this year. Other notable speakers last night were Linda McMahon, the former administrator of the Small Business Administration and CEO of the World Wrestling Entertainment; Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State; also Tucker Carlson, former Fox News host and founder of Tucker Carlson Network, along with Hulk Hogan, the professional entertainer and wrestler. Also Dana White, Eric Trump, and then, of course, President Trump himself. Federal investigators are examining the possibility that the would-be assassins scoped out the area where former President Trump was to speak 6 days before the campaign rally in Pennsylvania, where he was wounded. A cell phone linked to the 20-year-old gunman of Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, included geolocation data that indicated that he could have been in the area of the site. Investigators searching the digital devices that belonged to Thomas Matthew Crooks found that he had looked up information about both former President Trump and President Biden, including dates and locations of their upcoming events. FBI gained access to his cell phone and scoured his computer, home, and car, and interviewed more than 100 people so far, but have been unable to find any clear motive for his attack against Trump, and his political views remain unclear. Democrats at the highest levels are making a critical push for President Biden to rethink his election bid, with former President Barack Obama expressing concerns to allies and Speaker Nancy Pelosi privately telling Biden the party could lose the ability to seize control of the House if he doesn't step away from the 2024 race. Critical days ahead, President Biden facing the stark reality that many Democrats at the highest levels want him to consider how stepping aside from the 2024 election to make way for a new nominee atop the ticket could be the party's best chance of preventing widespread losses in November. He tested positive for COVID-19 following an event on Wednesday in Las Vegas. Still has mild symptoms, but continuing to work. His doctor has allowed him to work. His illness comes as concerns over the fitness of the oldest U.S. president in U.S. history have reached fever pitch. According to a new report behind closed doors, President Biden has become more receptive to the possibility of withdrawing from the presidential race. 4 prominent Democrats performing significantly better than President Biden in key swing states if they replaced him as the party's presumptive nominee, and we will have their names also to be declared later. Bob Newhart, whose stammering deadpan unflappability carried him to stardom as a stand-up comedian and later in television and movies, has died. He was 94, died in Los Angeles yesterday after a series of short illnesses. Lou Dobbs, a conservative political commentator and former host on CNN and Fox Business Network, has passed away at the age of 78, known for his staunch support of former President Trump and his commentary on business news, which led to clashes with network executives. His passing highlighting his contributions to the industry, including winning awards for his journalism work. The U.S. Navy announced it has exonerated 256 black sailors wrongfully convicted after the 1944 Port Chicago explosion, which killed 320 people and injured over 400 mostly black sailors. The disaster occurred when 2 ships exploded while loading ammunition for troops serving in World War II. A prominent aid group along the U.S.-Mexico border asking a Texas judge to push back on a widening Republican-led investigation into nonprofits that help migrants weeks after a separate court rejected efforts by the state to shutter an El Paso shelter. And employees of the largest housing provider for unaccompanied migrant children in the U.S. repeatedly sexually abused and harassed children in their care for at least 8 years, according to the Justice Department, alleging a shocking litany of offenses that took place as the company amassed billions of dollars in government contracts. Southwest Key Programs, Inc. employees, including supervisors, raped, touched, or solicited sex and nude images of children beginning in 2015 and possibly earlier in this lawsuit that was filed this week. Ivan Gershkovich, the first American journalist to be arrested on espionage charges in Russia since the Cold War, has been found guilty of spying and sentenced to 16 years in prison by a Russian court just a few minutes ago, in a case that the U.S. government, his newspaper, and supporters have denounced as a sham. The court in Yekaterinburg announced the guilty verdict and sentencing this morning, and it emerged that Russia was seeking an 18-year prison term for the Wall Street Journal reporter, but the court heard the closing arguments, and as Gershkovich delivered his closing remarks behind closed doors this morning. The Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky will talk to each other over the phone, and that will be happening sometime later today. Russia delivered a sneak preview of the consequences of NATO deploying warships in the Black Sea by claiming its forces destroyed 10 Ukrainian unmanned surface vessels in the region. Ukrainian President Zelensky attended an extraordinary meeting in London today where Prime Minister Keir Starmer and his cabinet strategized fresh measures to disrupt Russia's shadow fleet. The Ukrainian premier became the first foreign leader to visit Downing Street since Starmer's Labour Party won the UK election on the 4th of this month, and the first foreign leader to address cabinet in person since President Bill Clinton visited Tony Blair in 1997. A woman has become the top commander of Canada's military for the first time. General Jenny Carignan officially took over command of the Canadian Armed Forces in a ceremony at the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa yesterday. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said that Carignan is the first woman to lead the military of any Group of 20 or Group of 7 country. Panama's President Molino has said that migrants entering Panama through the treacherous Darien Gap will only be sent back to their countries if they agree to do so, potentially diminishing the impact of stricter immigration enforcement that he is pushing. The U.S. ambassador to the UN has announced nearly $203 million in additional humanitarian assistance to Sudan, but warned that the money is not a panacea and urged other countries to fulfill their financial pledges to address what she called the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas will visit Russia from the 12th to the 14th of August and meet Russian President Putin. And U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson has said that anyone who attempts to disrupt a speech set to be given by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to a joint session of Congress on the 24th of this month could be arrested. The Gaza Health Ministry said that 54 people have been killed in 24 hours as Israel kept up its heavy bombardment of recent days. A large long drone hit the center of Tel Aviv in an attack claimed by Houthi militia that killed one man and slightly wounded 4 others. And the drone attack on Tel Aviv is the first among an upcoming escalation in Houthi military operations against Israeli cities. And it is Israel's defense minister who has vowed retaliation following this deadly Houthi drone strike. The UN's top court will today hand down its view on the legal consequences of Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories since 1967 amid growing international pressure over the offensive in Gaza. And the UN has said that a two-state solution cannot be voted away in response to a resolution passed by the Israeli parliament rejecting the establishment of a Palestinian state. The UN Human Rights Office has warned that anarchy was spreading in the Gaza Strip with rampant looting, unlawful killings and shootings as the population faces an acute humanitarian crisis. Israeli officials are considering transferring control of Gaza's Rafah border crossing to the European Union and Palestinians. Though Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has scorned the idea of Israel ceding the crossing, Israeli officials are in talks with the European Union and the US about this proposal. And if enacted, it could foreshadow an end to the conflict between Israel and Hamas and enable more aid to get into the devastated Palestinian territory. Protests will be held in Switzerland outside the International Olympic Committee headquarters in Lausanne and the United Nations headquarters in Geneva over Israel's participation in the 2024 Olympic Games, according to the European Muslim Forum. After demonstrating in these two cities tomorrow, the group is planning to drive to Paris to ramp up its calls for a ban on Israel's participation in the Games, which start in the French capital on the 26th of this month. FIFA has put off the decision on a Palestinian bid to suspend Israel from international soccer until after the Paris Olympics, saying both parties had requested more time to submit their preparation, to submit to them all that they need to know about that. And final preparations are underway for the 2024 Paris Olympics, set to kick off in a week. French officials are ramping up security measures in the capital as the Olympic Village begins to welcome the first athletes into their housing facilities. When this year's Summer Olympics kicks off in Paris, France next week, nearly 100 floats filled with the world's leading athletes are expected to chug their way across the Seine. Around 500,000 fans will cheer as their nation's sporting ambassadors pass their way through the Louvre, by the Eiffel Tower, and a travel guidebook worth of other historical monuments. Ursula von der Leyen has been re-elected as President of the European Commission following a secret ballot among the MEPs. She secured the backing of 401 members of the European Parliament at a vote in Strasbourg, and 41 more than she needed. Italy is experiencing a serious heat wave, with the country's health ministry issuing its highest heat warning level for 17 major cities, including Florence, Bologna, and capital of Rome. The Acropolis in Greece has shut for hours, record-breaking ocean temperatures off Croatia, and planned to feed zoo animals popsicles in Italy. Southern Europe is baking under a hellishly hot heat wave. South Africa Parliament appears to have entered a new era, one of political maturity, the atmosphere remarkably different from what had gone before. No interruptions, no chaos, and no scuffles as President Cyril Ramaphosa laid out plans for the first time since the coalition government took office. This was a result of the African National Congress failing to secure more than 50% of the vote for the first time in the democratic era. And former President Jacob Zuma, who leads the MK party was barred from running as an MP just before May's elections, snubbed the invitation to attend yesterday's sitting. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa committing his new coalition government to growth, job creation and poverty reduction as he opened parliament following the first elections in which his ruling ANC lost its absolute majority. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the World News on Community Radio Networks. China has protested against Vietnam's latest claim to an extended continental shelf in the disputed South China Sea, following a similar request by the Philippines last month. And it is Japan introducing new and faster immigration processing strategy to handle tourism booms. Foreign visitors arriving in Japan may get to breeze through immigration soon as their country looks for new ways to amplify a tourism boom that is boosting its economy. Malaysia's billionaire king, Sultan Ibrahim Iskandar, will officially be installed tomorrow, 6 months after he was sworn in for a 5-year term under a unique rotating monarchy system. The coronation at the National Palace will formalize his role as Malaysia's 17th king in a ceremony steeped in Malay culture and pageantry. 9 ethnic Malay state rulers take turns as Malaysia's king for 5-year terms under the world's only such system, which began when Malaysia gained independence from Britain in 1957. Malaysia has 13 states, but only 9 have royal families, some which trace their roots to centuries-old Malay kingdoms that were independent states until they were brought together by the British. And Sultan Ibrahim, one of the country's richest men, has an extensive business empire ranging from real estate to telecommunications. The 65-year-old monarch from southern Johor state has good relations with Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim and is candid about Malaysian politics, having spoken out against corruption and racial discrimination. Television news channels in Bangladesh were off the air and telecommunications were widely disrupted today amid violent student protests against quotas for government jobs, in which nearly 24 people have been killed this week. No immediate word about the communication, but it is said that Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government was forced to call in their army late last night to help maintain order. Although the protests were sparked by student anger against the controversial quota system, some analysts have said that tough economic conditions, including high inflation and rising unemployment, as well as the depletion of foreign reserves, were pouring fuel on this fire. Bangladeshi Prime Minister has vowed to punish those responsible for killing people in the ongoing student protests over civil services hiring rules. And we do have the Ministry of External Affairs in India requesting Indians in Bangladesh to follow the advisory issued by the High Commission of India in Dhaka, urging people to stay indoors amid a nationwide strike against the government's job quota system. Former Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra, who completed an extended term this month, has been appointed as the next ambassador to the United States and will play a key role in tackling several irritants that have emerged in bilateral ties. After getting an extension in service before the general elections, he completed his term as Foreign Secretary on the 14th of this month. The key position in Washington has been vacant since the last ambassador, Taranjit Singh Sandhu, retired in January. And then Usha Chilukuri Vance, the daughter of Indian immigrant parents and the wife of Donald Trump's VP nominee J.D. Vance, made her political debut at the RNC. And she is, of course, very proudly speaking about her parents and upbringing, but the crowd at the RNC were holding placards featuring an immigrant-bashing message of mass deportation. She is raised in a middle-class neighborhood in San Diego by devoted parents who were immigrants from India, and mentioned that J.D. Vance adjusted to her vegetarian diet and even picked up the skill of making Indian food for her parents. An Air India flight to San Francisco was diverted due to a technical issue. Air India flight A183, operating from New Delhi to San Francisco International Airport, had to be diverted to Russia. A Boeing 777-200LR diverted and for technical reasons. Congress party attacked the central government today ahead of the union budget, which will be presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on the 23rd of this month on several issues, including joblessness, inflation, economic inequality, consumption, federal direct investment, and trade imbalance, among others. In a post addressed to Prime Minister Modi, party President Mallikarjun Kharge has said, "By telling one lie after another, you are rubbing salt in the wounds of the youth." The senior lawmaker then asked questions citing the discrepancies in data between the Reserve Bank of India and the International Labour Organization. Ram Charan will be the guest of honor at the 15th Indian Film Festival of Melbourne this year. Hosted by the Victorian state government annually, the festival will be held from the 15th to the 25th of next month, and he will also receive an award at the festival for his contribution to Indian cinema. Surya Kumar Yadav has been named India's T20 captain, the country's cricket board announced after Rohit Sharma quit the shortest format following last month's World Cup triumph. The 33-year-old Surya Kumar will lead a 15-member T20 squad to tour Sri Lanka for 3 internationals starting on the 27th of this month. The Pakistan women's cricket team will be back in action for the first time after their series defeat against West Indies and England in the Women's T20 Asia Cup, which starts in Dambulla today. While the opening fixture of the 8-team tournament will feature Nepal and UAE, Pakistan's first outing in the event will come with India a day later. 2 State Department bureaus could not prove compliance with internal policies for vetting aid groups in Taliban-ruled Afghanistan that received $293 million in funds, raising a risk that extremists may have profited. The U.S. remains the largest aid donor to impoverished Afghanistan nearly 3 years after the Taliban seized Kabul, as the last U.S. troops completed a chaotic pullout following 20 years of war. Thousands of people rallied today against a planned operation by the Pakistan military to root out militants along the Afghan border, with at least 1 protester killed when gunfire broke out. More than 10,000 people waving white flags and calling for peace gathered for the rally in Bannu, 40 kilometers from Afghanistan, where a suicide bomber rammed this explosive-packed vehicle into an army enclave, killing 8 Pakistani troops. Pakistan calling for immediate, robust and effective action by the interim Afghan government against the perpetrators of the recent terrorist attacks on Bannu cantonment, in which 8 military personnel were martyred and many others injured. The attack was carried out by the Afghanistan-based Hafiz Gul Bahadur group, and the interim government is urging to fully investigate and take immediate and effective action. The Counter-Terrorism Department arrested a senior Al-Qaeda leader, Aminul Haq, calling him a close aide of Osama bin Laden, the mastermind of the 9/11 attacks in the United States. In a breakthrough, the senior Al-Qaeda leader Aminul Haq, a close associate of Osama bin Laden, has been arrested. Pakistan has witnessed an uptick in terror activities in the past year, especially in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan areas, after the banned Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the TTP, ended its ceasefire with the government in November of 2022. And according to an annual security report issued by the Center for Research and Security Studies, Pakistan saw 1,524 violence-related fatalities and 1,463 injuries from 789 terror attacks and counter-terror operations last year, marking a record 6-year high. After a gap of 2 days, talks resumed between the leadership of the Tehreek-e-Labaik Pakistan and the district administration of Islamabad, with the residents suffering due to the blockade of the main intersection between Rawalpindi and Islamabad. As the National Emergencies Operations Center and the Pakistan Meteorological Department predicted spells of heavy rainfall across the country over the coming week, a portion of the highway linking Quetta with Islamabad was washed away due to torrential rains in the Zob and Sherani districts. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the world news for you, but I do have your financial news coming up in a separate segment. Stay with us right here on Community Radio Networks. Let's get you now the financial news that you need to know for today. Global equities are struggling this morning as worldwide computer systems outages have hit travel, trading and banking services, threatening to exacerbate a pullback in technology stocks. Cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike Inc. plunged as much as 21% in pre-market trading this morning after warning its software was causing computer systems to crash. Its chief executive later said the issue had been identified and a fix was being deployed. Microsoft Corporation shares dropped 2%, though it said it had resolved an earlier cloud services outage. However, contracts on the Nasdaq 100 and the S&P 500 indexes paired earlier losses to trade just 0.1% lower. In Europe, the stock 600 index was down 0.5%, slipping for a fifth day. Computer systems at businesses and public services around the globe disrupted this morning after a botched update of a widely used cybersecurity program took down Microsoft Corporation's systems, hitting airlines, banks, and healthcare systems. There have been few outages of this scale. The cascading failures underscore the vulnerabilities of the modern economy and the central role of security software, which has deep access to operating systems. This is an unprecedented incident that has happened, and the scale of the disruption reflects the enduring ubiquity of Microsoft's Windows and the sizable adoption of CrowdStrike security software. Windows is installed on more than 70% of machines, and CrowdStrike is the global leader in modern corporate protection software. Although the software is designed to thwart threats, CrowdStrike customers posted blue error screens to social media as they were prevented from accessing laptops and corporate computers. A global technology outage, grounding the flights, knocking banks and hospital systems offline and media outlets off air in this massive disruption that affected companies and services around the world and highlighted dependence on software from a handful of providers. The healthcare stocks have rebounded, but they're still underperforming this month, according to the broader market year to date. S&P 500 healthcare select sector, including pharmaceutical giants such as Eli Lilly and Johnson & Johnson, rose 7.7% since the beginning of the year. And this global tech failure that has disrupted operations across multiple industries today is as the outage upended everything from banking to healthcare systems. And this alert went out at 5:30 in the morning, sharing a manual workaround to resolve these issues. Microsoft makes third-rate products, according to Apple co-founder Steve Jobs' damning assessment of the Seattle-based software giant made back in 1995, and that has gone viral this morning as the company battles a major Windows outage issue that has affected millions of users, including commercial services like airlines. Shares of cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike, behind global Microsoft outage, lost a fifth of its value in trading in the U.S. and down 21% in unofficial trading. This would result in a loss of almost $16 billion in CrowdStrike's valuation after the company was involved in a massive IT outage hitting companies and airports worldwide. And the Microsoft Windows service outage brought the world to a halt, with Windows desktops and laptops crashing across the world. Not only that, the dreaded blue screen of death era has also impacted several sectors, including airlines and, of course, banks. Oil, meanwhile, has rebounded from three-week lows as technical levels provided a floor for losses, and a government report showed another decline in U.S. crude stockpiles. U.S. oil inventories shrank by 4.87 million barrels last week. And West Texas Intermediate rallied 2.6% to settle near $83 a barrel. Former President Trump used his nomination speech yesterday to take aim at President Biden's electric vehicle policies, vowing to action against them on his first day in office. President Biden is trying to spin Elon Musk's full-throated endorsement of Donald Trump in his own financial favor. The Biden campaign blasted out a fundraising email warning Musk is using his vast fortune to try to control our democracy. And a federal appeals court blocked President Biden's administration from continuing to implement a new student debt relief plan designed to lower monthly payments for millions of Americans. A St. Louis-based 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeal granted that request by 7 Republican-led states to put on hold parts of the U.S. Department of Education's debt relief plan that had not already been blocked by a lower court judge. Elon Musk says he plans to move SpaceX to Texas, and some of the company's competitors are trying to capitalize by poaching his employees. At least 2 space firms have launched public appeals for SpaceX employees to join them after Musk announced the SpaceX moving its headquarters from California, with one CEO promising engineers 12 bottles of champagne if they make that move. NASA has cancelled the Viper Moon rover program due to rising costs. Viper, short for Volatiles Investigating Polar Exploration Rover, a robotic mission intended to land near the moon's south pole and spend 100 days scouting for lunar ice deposits. The rover was slated to launch next year to the moon aboard an astrobotic Griffin lander as part of NASA's Commercial Lunar Payload Services initiative. Now it appears that Viper will be scrapped for parts or potentially sold to industry. Prime Day set a new record as shoppers spent $14.2 billion on the 16th and 17th that ended, and across various e-commerce sites, up 11% from last year. Netflix experienced strong subscriber growth in the second quarter, adding over 8 million subscribers globally. Netflix revenue for the quarter reached $9.56 billion with diluted per-share earnings of $4.88, showing financial strength and exceeding estimates. American Express said second quarter profits had jumped 39% as the credit card company benefited again from a broad increase in card member spending, as well as more of its customers carrying a balance. Credit card giant American Express raising its full-year profit forecast. And JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon has said that he'll likely add thousands of more jobs centered around artificial intelligence at his company in the next couple of years. A character who has held court at a popular Disney World attraction for over 50 years is being retired after being considered insensitive and outdated. When the revamped and renovated Country Bear Jamboree attraction reopens, Liver Lips McGraw will not be a part of the show, as he has reportedly been deemed potentially offensive to anyone struggling with alcohol abuse. Hyundai is recalling nearly 67,000 vehicles in the United States to fix 2 issues that could increase the risk of a crash. The first recall involves certain Veloster, Genesis, Elantra, and Kona vehicles, and the automaker says the fuel pump may fail, which can result in a loss of drive power. And we do have these vehicles from Kia that are being recalled. The automaker said not aware of any injuries or crashes related to these issues. However, it has confirmed 2,460 related incident reports. Officials are investigating an outbreak linked to edibles sold in smoke and vape shops across the country that have sent 36 people to the hospital and are possibly linked to 1 death. This nationwide recall was issued in late June for all Diamond Shrums brand infused cones, chocolate bars, and gummies. But officials are concerned the products are still being offered for sale as the number of illnesses linked to these items continues to grow. So do remember that these are Diamond Shrums brand infused cones, chocolate bars, and gummies. A 150-million-year-old Stegosaurus fossil, billed as one of the finest and most complete dinosaur skeletons ever discovered, sold for a whopping $44.6 million, making it the most valuable fossil ever sold at auctions. It's dubbed Apex and discovered only projecting to fetch between 4 and 6, nowhere near its final price, according to Sotheby's, $44.6 million. Darden Restaurants is adding Tex-Mex to the menu. The parent company of Olive Garden, Longhorn Steakhouse, Yard House, and other chains said it's buying Chuy's for approximately $605 million. Darden said it'll acquire all outstanding shares of Chuy's, and those shares closed at $25.27 apiece and then soared past $37 in after-hours trading. Once the deal was announced, Darden shares fell 1% in after-hours trading. Darden is based in Orlando, Florida, and operates more than 1,900 restaurants and has 190,000 employees. It also owns Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, Cheddar's Scratch Kitchen, The Capitol Grill, Seasons 52, Eddie V's, and Bahama Breeze. Whataburger is trying to find a way out after a former employee threatens to sue over their retirement plan. Houston Chronicle reporting a San Antonio man accused the chain of keeping poorly performing funds in the retirement plan instead of looking for different lucrative funds. The Dallas Zoo hosted its Dollar Day of the summer, and that was yesterday. And it sells out the summer's first Dollar Day yesterday. Right now, the Dallas Zoo is reporting that tickets cannot be bought online because of those computer glitches that have been happening around the world. JP Morgan Chase and Company planning to set up shop in Munich as the U.S. banking giant keeps expanding in Europe's largest economy. The new office in southern Germany's largest city will focus on asset management and corporate banking. Fashion company Hugo Boss is significantly expanding its presence in the heart of Europe with the opening of its new Boss flagship store in Düsseldorf, Germany. The store contains about 1,000 meters of square meters of sales space spread over 2 floors and will display the Boss brand for men and women. Burberry's new boss, Joshua Schulman, faces an immediate strategy dilemma. The former head of Coach was appointed to replace Jonathan Akeroyd, becoming the 4th CEO of the £2.6 billion British fashion house in 10 years. Elon Musk said that Singapore's first prime minister, touted as the country's founding father, was a brilliant man. The Tesla and SpaceX CEO reposted a blog piece by newsletter writer George Mack, who praised the foresight and immigration policies of the Prime Minister. Asia's foreign reserves have dropped this year as central banks have intervened to support their currencies, with Japan, Indonesia, and South Korea leading those declines. Foreign reserves across 12 countries, from Japan to India, fell about $50 billion to $7.5 trillion by the end of June. They had risen 2.2 in the same period last year. Japan's government cut this year's growth forecast today as consumption took a hit from rising import costs due to a weak yen, highlighting the fragile nature of economic recovery. Samsung Electronics and representatives of its biggest workers' union in South Korea, that has been on a strike since early last week, have agreed to resume negotiations today. 3 Indian airlines announced disruptions to their booking systems today, matching widespread technical problems reported by flight operators around the world. Indigo shared a list of 192 flights, saying they were cancelled due to a cascading effect of the worldwide travel system outage, as hundreds of aircrafts around the world came to a grinding halt due to this widespread global computer outage. Indigo said the option of rebooking a flight or claiming a refund was temporarily unavailable. And the airline also shared a list which showed 192 flights operated by Indigo had been cancelled so far. The Sustainability Cotton Initiative, Better Cotton, is launching a new fund in partnership with impact investment firm FS Impact Finance, aimed to enhance the field-level impact related to women's empowerment and climate resilience among smallholder cotton farmers. The benchmark indices fell from their record highs on across-the-board sell-off today, and the analysts attributing today's market crash to profit booking amid a correction in the global markets. Sensex has ended 739 points lower, and the Nifty lost 270 points. The net profit has been rising at Wipro. It's 4.6% and to 3,003 crore rupees. The IT company's net profit rising by 4.6% to this 3,000 crores, but revenue dipping 4%. And that is for Wipro. We have the union budget coming up soon, and the Reserve Bank of India chief reiterating the bank's commitment to bring down inflation to its 4% target while keeping in mind the objective of this growth. Paytm's first quarter results. Before the results were announced, Paytm shares had fallen nearly 3%, but they rebounded to rise by 2% following the company's very positive outlook. Among the affected brokerages that are being reporting this morning are Nuvama, Edelweiss, and Motilal Oswal, with the traders reporting disruptions in their operations in India. Yes Bank, the key areas of focus, including management commentary on future growth, loan books expansion, and potential stake sales by major shareholders. We also do have Infosys planning to hire 15 to 20,000 freshers in financial year 25. Reliance first quarter results were, while the consumer-facing businesses of Reliance Jio and Reliance Retail, they are expected to perform well. A significant decline in the oil-to-chemical segment likely to be offset. We do also have Gujarat Titans up for grabs, and the lock-in period set by the Board of Control for Cricket in India, which prevents new teams from selling stakes, will be ending in February of next year. Infosys planning to hire, and we have the first quarter results today of RIL, Paytm, Wipro, among 53 companies to announce their earnings today. We have also the Indian companies making a beeline for the stock market to ride its inexplicable buoyancy, even in the midst of a pandemic. This year's pipeline of new issues, as cleared by SEBI, is already worth around 34,000 crore rupees. Even as the pandemic plays havoc with lives and livelihoods, the Indian stock markets, apparently unaffected by it all, have been very buoyant, almost as if in a parallel universe. India alone is slated to generate around 70,000 crore rupees, and this year will be a record one in history of IPOs in India. A mental health study has confirmed that many already suspected working women in India are more stressed than men. For its latest report titled Emotional Wellness State of Employees, Your Dost surveyed more than 5,000 Indian professionals and gained some telling insights into workplace stresses. After gathering responses from more than 5,000 respondents, it's the mental health platform Your Dost that found that at workplaces, women were more stressed than men. The National Assembly Standing Committee in Islamabad on Energy was informed that no company was interested in offshore oil and gas exploration in the country. The State Bank of Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves have increased by a meager $19 million to $9.423 trillion during the week that ended the 12th of July. Textile and clothing exports posted a modest growth of 0.93% this year, indicating that the sector may not be able to compete with regional rivals due to the implementation of harsh taxation measures in the current fiscal year. And the Pakistan Stock Exchange witnessed accelerated selling pressure today as the benchmark index shed more than 1,200 points in intraday trade on what most analysts agreed was political noise. Large-scale manufacturing sector has grown for the sixth consecutive month, and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif directed authorities to increase the number of appellate tribunals from 50 to 100 to expedite the resolution of pending tax cases, while asking the Federal Board of Revenue to bring affluent individuals under the tax net. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have in the financial news, but I do have your final segment of the program coming up in just a minute. This is the final segment of our program today, and today is a lovely Friday morning. It is the 19th of July. Below average temperatures and above average precipitation. Those are our weather stories for the next 7 days. A quiet morning across North Texas as temperatures have fallen into the 70s with a few clouds overhead. Nothing is showing up on the radar, and we don't expect any rain today and most of tomorrow. Afternoon highs today will reach the low 90s and mid 90s tomorrow, but the pattern change starts to unfold on Sunday as winds turn northwesterly in the upper levels of the atmosphere, a very unsettled weather platform there which allows disturbances to roll in from the northwest. And as these disturbances interact with daytime heating and another cold front into the area early next week, widespread showers and thunderstorm activity will break out. And the first strong disturbance arrives on Sunday, the second on Monday, dragging the cold front with it. These are the rainiest 2 days expected in this 7-day forecast, with the clouds and rain around. Temperatures will hover in the 80s through this period. 70s in the rain. It's still way too early to tell you where the heaviest rain bands will set off. But if you have any outdoor plans over the next 4 days, you need to get things taken care of today as well as tomorrow. Let's get you some stories from the annals of history that happened on the 18th of July. The Great Fire of Rome broke out and destroyed much of the city, beginning on the 19th of July in the year 64. Despite the well-known stories, there's no evidence that the Roman Emperor Nero either started the fire or played the fiddle while it burned. Still, he did use the disaster to further his political agenda. Began in the slums of a district south of the legendary Palatine Hill, and the area's homes burned very quickly, and the fire spread north, fueled by high winds. And during the chaos, there were reports of heavy looting. The fire ended up raging out of control for nearly 3 days. 3 of Rome's 14 districts were completely wiped out. Only 4 were untouched by this tremendous conflagration. Hundreds of people died in the fire, and many thousands were left homeless. After only 9 days as the monarch of England, Lady Jane Grey is deposed in favor of her cousin Mary. The 15-year-old Lady Jane, beautiful and intelligent, had only reluctantly agreed to be put on the throne. The decision would result in her execution. Lady Jane was deposed as Queen of England on today's date in 1553. She was the great-granddaughter of King Henry VII and the cousin of King Edward VI. She and Edward were the same age, and they had almost been married, but she was a year later, she was married to Lord Dudley, the son of John Dudley, the Duke of Northumberland. And when King Edward fell deathly ill with tuberculosis soon after, her father-in-law, John Dudley, persuaded the dying king that Jane, a Protestant, should be chosen the royal successor over Edward's half-wife Mary, who was a Catholic. Edward died, and 4 days later, Lady Jane Grey was proclaimed Queen of England. But her ascendance was supported by the Royal Council, but the populace supported Mary, the rightful heir. And 2 days into her reign, Dudley departed London with an army to suppress Mary's forces, and in his absence, the council declared him a traitor and Mary the Queen, and ending Jane's 9-day reign. And that happened on today's date in 1553. The agricultural chemist George Washington Carver, head of Alabama's famed Tuskegee Institute, arrives in Dearborn, Michigan at the invitation of Henry Ford, the founder of the Ford Motor Company, on today's date in 1942. Born into slavery in Missouri during the Civil War, he managed to get a high school education while working as a farmhand in Kansas. Turned away by Kansas University because he was an African American, he later became the first black student at Iowa State Agricultural College, where he obtained his bachelor's and master's degrees. Left Iowa to head the Department of Agriculture at the Tuskegee Normal and Industrial Institute, a school founded by the leading black educator Booker T. Washington. By convincing farmers in the South to plant peanuts as an alternative to cotton, he helped resuscitate the region's agriculture. In the process, became one of the most respected and influential scientists in the country. And that was George Washington Carver, who begins experimental projects with Henry Ford on the 19th of July in 1942. He and Ford experimented with different crops, including sweet potatoes and dandelions, eventually devising a way to make the rubber substitute from goldenrod, a plant weed. On 19th July, in 1943, the United States bombs railway yards in Rome in an attempt to break the will of the Italian people to resist, as Hitler lectures their leader Benito Mussolini on how to prosecute the war further. President Franklin Roosevelt, a few days earlier, and British Prime Minister Winston Churchill appealed to the Italian civilian population to reject Mussolini and Hitler and live for Italy and civilization. As an incentive, American bombers raided the city, destroying its railways. Panic broke out among the Romans. Convinced by Mussolini that the Allies would never bomb the Holy City, civilians poured into the Italian capital for safety. And the bombing did more than shake their security in the city. It shook their confidence in their leaders. The denizens of Rome were not alone in such disillusion. And it was America bombing Rome on today's date in 1943. And Mussolini, of course, kept up his charade for his German allies. Italy would press on, but no one believed the brave front anymore. Just a day later, Hitler secretly ordered Field Marshal Erwin Rommel to take command of the occupied Greek islands, better to pounce on Italy if and when Mussolini capitulated to the United States. But within a week, events would take a stunning turn. Secretary of State John Foster Dulles announces that the United States is withdrawing its offer of financial aid to Egypt to help with the construction of the Aswan Dam on the Nile River. The action drove Egypt further towards an alliance with the Soviet Union and was a contributing factor to the Suez Crisis later in 1956. Secretary Dulles announced that the U.S., together with Great Britain, was providing nearly $70 million in aid to Egypt to help in the construction of the Aswan Dam on the Nile River. Dulles agreed to this assistance only reluctantly. He was deeply suspicious of Egyptian leader Gamal Abdel Nasser, who he believed to be a reckless and dangerous nationalist. However, others in the Eisenhower administration convinced Dulles that the American aid might pull Nasser back from his relationship with the Soviet Union and prevent the growth of Soviet power in the Middle East. 7 months after the announcement, however, Dulles declared that the American offer was being revoked, citing difficulties in arranging the financial details of the U.S. grant with the Egyptian government. But his real motivation was Nasser's unceasing attacks on Western colonization and imperialism and Egypt's continued dalliance with the Soviet Union. Dulles, of course, might have believed that without the American aid, the dam project would fold. On this point, he was wrong. The Soviets rushed to Egypt's aid, and the Aswan Dam was officially opened in 1964. Nasser, of course, was furious with the U.S. action. So too were the British, who believed that the America's withdrawal of aid had provided the opening for Soviet penetration of Egypt. The incident nearly provoked a U.S.-Soviet confrontation, but President Eisenhower coupled stern warnings against any Soviet military action with a refusal to support the British, French, and Israeli invasions. And that, ladies and gentlemen, happened as the United States withdrew its offer of aid for the Aswan Dam on the 19th of July in 1956. Some stories from the annals of history that happened on today's date. I have huge thanks going out to Discount Power for their support of community radio networks. Also thanks going out to Houston EB5, the Ahluwalia Law Offices, the Wyndham Hotel in Irving, Digital X-Force, Kinza Law, Maikolachi, Ruchi Palace by Maikolachi, Sri Vimal, Vimal's Venue, Eggholic on MacArthur Boulevard in Irving, Mystic Mandala, and Flash Brush Productions. The Raring to Roar continues. The 2024 Texas Super Kings schedule. There will be a match today at 7:30. And then we also do have other events happening in town this weekend. Today, tomorrow, and Sunday, the Carom Grandmasters, singles and doubles, a 3-day event with a Bollywood night on Saturday. Global participation, a lot of cash prizes, and a live broadcast. It's happening at the Holiday Inn on Central Expressway in Richardson, and that is this weekend. Now, as far as the Grand Prairie Cricket Stadium is concerned, the India Associations and MLC night is going to be happening on Sunday at 7:30. Also on Sunday, we do have Atif Aslam's concert. The only one happening in Texas is going to be in Austin this Sunday, and the day after tomorrow at the Long Center in Austin at 7 p.m. The Sri Shirdi Sai Baba Temple of DFW on Plano Parkway is inviting you all to the Guru Purnima celebrations. They will be all day, and that will be this Sunday. Tomorrow, we are going to have the Sri Satyanarayan Vrata Puja for Guru Purnima at 6:45. Then all day on Sunday, we are going to have aartis and a lot of programs starting at 7 in the morning and going on till 9:30. All this at the Sri Shirdi Sai Baba Temple on Plano Parkway. ShirdiSaiDallas.org is their website, and you can even call them at 469-467-3388. We have the Wish Win Spellathon that has been announced, and the preliminaries for the junior categories will take place on the 26th and 27th, and the preliminaries for the senior Spellathon on the 28th and 29th. Shahnaz Gill will be in Dallas on the 27th at the Grandian Event Center on Parkwood Boulevard in Frisco. And the Al Noor International, the 5th Cruise Mushaira, taking place on Saturday, the 27th, at the Hidden Cove Park and Marina at Hackberry Creek Park Road in Frisco. The Indian Cultural Heritage Foundation presents a spectacular dance and a musical called Krishna, Fire to Frost, by a dynamic dancing duo Nirupama and Rajendra and a troupe of 21 artists. This is happening on the 3rd of August at 5 o'clock at the Moody Performance Hall, and tickets are available at Ticket DFW. We have the Abhinav Dance Company's Krishna, Fire to Frost, a spectacular dance musical on the enigmatic personality from the Mahabharata called Draupadi. That'll be on the 3rd of August at 5 o'clock in the Moody Performance Hall. And the 2024 North Texas Job Fair that is going to be hosted by U.S. Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne in partnership with the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce is happening on the 8th of August at the Texas Rangers Stadium. That is on the 8th of August. Madhuri Dixit will be in town on the 9th of August. And on the 10th of August, Yadein, reminiscing the songs of Kishore Kumar, Lata Mangeshkar, and Muhammad Rafi. And that will be at the Grand Center in Plano. 17th and 18th, we have a holistic festival by Mystic Mandala. It's a 2-day festival that is happening at the Cotton Mill in McKinney, both days from 11 to 5. It's free admission, and you can check out more details at holisticfestivaloflife.com. Pakistan Society of North Texas bringing you a celebration of Pakistan's Independence Day, and this is going to be happening on Sunday, the 18th of August, the Qaid Mela at the Frisco Flyers Event Center with a live performance by Farhan Saeed and Sabah Qamar. On the 18th of August, we have a new exhibition that is opening at the Dallas Museum of Art. It's called Frida, Beyond the Myth, coinciding with the 70th anniversary of Frida Kahlo's death. It'll go on all the way till November. Wellness and Workplace Conference by the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce on the 22nd of August. And please mark these dates, and we'll have more details coming up for you. The India Association of North Texas invites you to the 47th Anand Bazaar in celebration of 77 years of India's independence. It's happening on Saturday, the 31st of August at the Frisco Rough Riders Stadium. And the India Association would love for you to get involved as a sponsor, or if you want a booth or in any other way. You can check out more details on the India Association's website, iant.org. Join the Brahma Kumaris of Dallas in welcoming Sister Shivani, a globally renowned spiritual teacher and motivational speaker, as she guides us with ancient wisdom to bring hope and clarity in times of confusion and chaos. Sunday, the 8th of September, from 2 to 4, the Credit Union of Texas Event Center in Allen. Mughal-e-Azam's second season, Season 2 in North America, from August to October, will bring the show to Dallas on the 13th, 14th, and 15th of September at the Dallas Music Hall. Flashbrush Productions brings you a bridal expo. It's a wedding expo on the 14th of September from 10 to 7 at the Frisco Hall. For vendor booths and sponsorships, please contact Priya. Her number is 972-963-0954. Texas Giving Day is on the 19th of September, and the Dallas Festival of Lights, the Grand Diwali Mela, on the 13th of October at the South Fork Ranch by Mystic Mandala. Please mark all these dates and we'll get you details. But that's my show for today, and I do hope that you enjoyed it and found it entertaining, ready for you to take on the day. All of you have a lovely day and a great weekend. For those of you who'd like to reach me directly, my number is 214-675-1754.